In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can create a custom activity on your Garmin watch. I'm going to be using the Garmin Forerunner 245 Music, but if you have a recent Garmin watch from the last 2 or 3 years, I'm pretty sure it works the same. In my video, 10 reasons to buy a Garmin 245 Music and 6 reasons not to, if you haven't seen that video, I will link it up here and down here. Loads and loads of people asked in the comments how I was able to add badminton as a sport on my 245. Well, that's a custom activity and I'm going to show you how I did it. So I've set up an overhead rig here so that you can see everything that I'm doing on the 245 and you can follow along with yours if you need to. So to add a new activity, there's actually a couple of ways you can get to that function. You can use the top right hand button, the red indicated start stop button. So if I press on that, you can see I've got all of my favorites listed out at the top and I can scroll down through those. And then underneath, I've got some additional sports there also. When you get to the bottom of the list, underneath other, there's a big green circle with a plus in it so that you can add a new activity. But there's also a second way that you can get to it. So if I back out of that menu, if you hold down the up button on the left hand side, that will take you into your main menu screen. Then if you scroll down from there, you'll get to activities and apps. Select that. You'll get the same list of activities and apps that you get in your other menu, just a slightly different layout. Scroll down from here. You can see your favorites at the top, highlighted in white. Same as before, if you scroll to the bottom, there'll be an add option. So it doesn't matter which route you take, they will both take you to the same place. Although they look slightly different, it's the same thing. So let's go back into it, scroll all the way to the bottom. Hit add, and the first thing you'll see at the top is copy activity, and this is what we're going to use. Also in this menu is where you would add your favorites of other activities that may not already be listed. So if you wanted to add cycling to your favorites, then you would do it in here by going down, pick bike, and then you can see you can set it as a favorite. So in order to create a custom activity, you need to actually use an existing activity that Garmin supplies. So here's where the copy function comes into play. So if you use the red start stop button again and hit copy activity, you can see listed out all of the activities that you're able to copy. So let's say for instance, we want to set up a custom activity for squash. There's no squash provided in the list that Garmin gives us, so we're going to have to take one of the existing sports and create a new one. This is exactly the same way I created badminton on mine, and there's some customization of what you want to see in that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So for squash, I can scroll down through the menu and decide which ones I want to copy. So for this one, I'm going to use cardio. Now you might think, why don't I use badminton or tennis off of that list? Probably if I was setting up a squash one, I would use that because those are previous activities that I've already set up that are similar, but you won't of course have those on yours. So you will need to use one of the existing ones, one of which is cardio. And that makes sense because it's going to probably have some of the stuff that you want in your squash activity. So if I pick cardio, this is where you get to name your activity. So, I mean, call it what you like, call it John if you want, but it makes sense to me, you're gonna call it squash. So just delete that back out and then scroll through the letters one by one. Once you're done, scroll down to the bottom and hit the tick. And there you've named your sport and you can carry on. So the first option on the menu is data screens. So this is where you're actually going to choose what data you're collecting when you're carrying out that activity. So if we go into data screens, so here's where you can actually choose how many data fields you want to display on each screen. So by default, it's given me 2 on the first page, and it's given me 1 on the second page, and it's given me like a watch face on the third page. But we're going to customize all that. So if I scroll back up to the top, if I hit here on the edit icon, you see I get a secondary menu. So you can see that I can now choose the layout, data fields, I can reorder and I can remove pages. So let's start with the layout. This works in exactly the same way as it does when you're customizing the data screens for any existing activities. And again, if you want to see more about how that's done, you can see that in the Garmin 245 review video, but you're also going to see it here. So you can see I can choose from 1 data field, 2, 3, 3 large, or 4. Personally, I like to have as much data on one screen as possible, so it means I don't have to scroll through pages whilst I'm doing the activity. So I'm going to go for 4. Once you're happy with that, hit the red button again, and you can move on to what's actually in that layout. So go down to data fields. So you can see here the first field that is flashing is timer, but this can be anything. So it's the topmost field that you're going to edit first. So hit the red start stop button again. And here you're going to get a list of options of what you can put in that field. So if you scroll through the list using the up and down arrows, you can choose between distance fields, pace fields, speed fields, heart rate fields, temperature fields, elevation fields, navigation fields, and other fields. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to have your heart rate front and center at the top. Scroll back up to heart rate fields, select it, and you can choose from heart rate, average heart rate zone, aerobic training effect, anaerobic training effect, heart rate percentage max, percentage heart rate reserve, average heart rate percentage max, average percentage heart rate reserve, lap percentage heart rate reserve, lap heart rate percentage max, last lap percentage heart rate, last lap heart rate percentage max, and time in zone. There's quite a lot of options there, and if you really wanted to, you could set all of these fields just to heart rate fields if you was really obsessed about your heart rate for this one particular activity. But for me, I'm just going to go for the average heart rate. So once you've added that, you can now scroll down to the next field, which is going to be one below to the left. At the minute, it's set to calories. So again, you're going to get the same options as you had before, and you can pick through those. So let's say, for instance, on this one, I want to see the distance that I've covered. So let's go into the distance fields. So here I can choose from distance, lap distance, and last lap distance. So for squash, I'm just going to choose distance. So then when I've done with that field, I can press down again and it will go to the right hand field. Here at the minute it's set to speed, but let's maybe have a timer field in there. So choose timer field, I can choose from timer, lap time, last lap time, average lap time, elapsed time, and overall ahead or behind. So for this, I just want to know the total elapsed time. So I'm going to choose that. Once you're happy with that field, again, you can go down and you can go to the bottom field and edit that one. Same again. Here you can see the menus jump to the top of the screen, means that you can see what's going in the actual field. So what have we got left? I'm actually going to go into navigation fields, which might sound a bit odd for squash. Here we can choose from distance remaining, estimated total distance, velocity made good, heading, bearing, course, off course, destination location, latitude and longitude, ETA, ETE, destination waypoint, next waypoint, distance to next, ETA at next, and time to next. For this, I'm just going to choose estimated total distance, which means if you get a lock on inside, you're actually going to be able to see what sort of distance you've covered running around the court, which can be quite interesting. It's something I've used before on my badminton mode, just to give you an idea of actually how much court you're covering. But it's only going to be accurate if you can get a lock on, so bear that in mind. If you're setting one up for something like tennis, however, then you're going to be able to get a lock on fairly easily outside, and you're really going to be able to see what sort of distance you're covering across the court. Once you're happy with those fields on that page, just hit back. That'll bring up the same menu as before. If you want to go down to the next page and edit that, hit back again, and you can scroll down to the next page where you can edit again. So now on this one, it's taken me to this heart rate screen, but I would like to add another set of fields. Again, hit the red button. I can reorder this, so I can actually move that gauge up and down the list. But actually, if I press back, what I'd like to do is remove it altogether. Then I can go down to remove, yes, and confirm that. And now you can see all I've got is the screen that I just created, and then below that I've got a watch face. But what I'm going to do here is go one further, and I can add a new screen. So if I hit add new screen, I can hit custom data, or I could add the one I just removed back, as well as virtual partner, map, or music controls. If I go back up, I'm going to go to custom data. Again, I'm going to be able to choose the layout. So now I can scroll between 1 field, 2 fields, 3 fields, the larger 3 fields, or the 4 field layout I had on the first screen, which is what I'm going to do again. Now when you add a new screen, you're not just editing a previous one, it's going to bring you into a different menu, which is slightly confusing, but it works in much the same way. So here you can see that I'm actually editing the top field again as before, and I've got the same list of options that I had before also. So let's choose one that we haven't already looked at, pace fields. So it's probably not something that you would want to add for squash, for instance, but if you was doing another custom activity, let's have a look at what you would get in pace fields. So you can choose from pace, average pace, lap pace, or last lap pace. So let's just choose average pace. Then this will advance you automatically onto the second field, which again, same list of options. This time, let's look at speed fields. You can choose from speed, average speed, lap speed, last lap speed, or maximum speed. Just for fun, we're going to choose that, maximum speed. How quickly am I actually moving across the court? From there, it's going to move you onto the next field, which is the third one. Again, same list. So let's have a look at what the options are in the temperature fields. You can choose from temperature, 24-hour maximum, or 24-hour minimum. So we'll just choose temperature. Again, it's going to advance you onto the fourth data field, same list. And we can choose elevation fields this time. There's only one option in that, it's elevation. It's now going to ask you in what order you want to place this screen. So it's going to default to the bottom, but if you wanted to put that set of data fields up to the top, then you can. So for me, let's just move it underneath the previous one that we just edited and then confirm that there. So now you can see the first screen, I've got my average heart rate, distance, elapsed time, and my estimated total distance on the first screen. If I scroll down, I've got the average pace, maximum speed, temperature, and elevation that I just did on the second screen. And then I've still got a watch face on the third screen, which again was the default from the activity that we copied previously. If I want to add yet another screen, I can again go down to the bottom and add. So let's do that. On this one, again, I'm going to choose custom data. Don't think there's that many more to look through, so I'm just going to add a 2 field screen. Starting with field 1. Again, I've got the same list each time. So the final one that I haven't looked at is the other fields. So if we go into other fields, this is where you can choose your calories, battery percentage, GPS, laps, sunrise, sunset, time of day, and steps. So steps might be interesting, and in the bottom field I'm going to go again down to the other, and I'm going to choose calories. Once you've done that, again it's going to ask you in what order you want to place that screen. So again, I'm going to place that above the clock. So now you can see we've got the first screen that we edited from the original activity, we've got the second custom screen that we created, we've got the third custom screen, then we've got the clock that was already there, and we can still add yet a further screen. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go down this time to add music controls. You don't have to do anything to customize the music controls. They are what they are, but it just means that you're going to be able to access them as part of your rolling list of screens rather than holding down the down button to access the controls. So it might be quite useful to add to your activity if you're going to be using music with your custom activity. If I still wanted to add a heart rate gauge, I can do that. Again, it's going to ask me where I want to put it. And maybe again above the clock. Go down. I can still add further screen. Maybe I want to add a map. Again, where in that list of screens do you want to add it? Let's put it there. I can still add a further screen. This is the last option now because I've added everything else I'm able to add. Once you're done customizing all your fields and choosing the layout of your screens, all you need to do is hit the back button and you will come out to a menu where you can go up to the Done button. But before you hit Done, you can also choose to add alerts. So if you go into the alerts menu, hit Add New, and again you can either do a custom one or you can choose off of an existing list, so you can have an alert for heart rate, time, distance and calories. If you choose custom, you can choose from drink, eat, turn around, go home, or again custom from there. Custom from there takes you into where you can add your own. So I'm going to choose to add just stop, so you know when enough is enough. And I'm going to add a distance of 22k, just in case I get a bit carried away. Then you can choose to have it repeat or not, so I'm going to leave that on. And you can add more than one alert, so if you wanted to add one for distance or one for time, obviously if you got to the distance before the time, the distance would go off. If you got to the time before the distance, same thing. Maybe you've got them aligned, or you could have something to remind you to drink on a marathon, for instance. There's all sorts of different alerts that you could add that would help you on your activity. So if we back out of that, you can also choose to turn the metronome on and off. You can choose the distance for the auto lap function and turn it off. And you can choose to have a lap alert and what will be in each of those fields when it takes over the screen. So the primary field may be the lap time and the secondary field may be the total time, but you might want to change that to pace or distance. And then you can preview that so you can see what it will actually look like when it takes over the screen each time that lap is hit. So every time you hit a K on this, it will come up and show you this. You can choose to have your auto pause on or off. You can choose whether or not to activate the lap key, whether you want to add laps yourself manually or not. You can choose whether the data screens will auto scroll or whether you want to do it manually using the up and down buttons. You can choose whether to edit the weight or not if you're using it for a strength workout. You can choose whether or not the GPS is on or off. Obviously, if you've selected GPS in your set of data screens, then you're going to want to make sure that you turn that on. And then you can choose whether you want GPS only, GPS and GLONASS, GPS and Galileo, or Ultra Track, which is the mode that's going to allow you to get the longest distance out of GPS without running the battery down. You can choose the power save timeout options, which can be either normal or extended. You can choose the background color, so you might want to make it white text on a black background. You can choose the accent color, so you might have different colors for different sports. So you might say, okay, all my racket sports are going to be blue. And you can rename it if you've decided to go with John after all and not squash, and you can restore it to default. So once you're done, hit done, and then you can decide whether you want to set it in your favorites list or whether you just want it as one of your other activities. So I'm going to say that I don't want it in my favorites list, and then you can choose where on that list. So it might be the first of my non-favorite activities on that list, and I can hit the red button and add it there. So now you can see, if I back out to the watch face, once I press the red button, you can see these are the ones I usually have as favorites. So I've got run, treadmill, badminton, tennis and strength. Then if I go further down, the next one on my list of activities is squash. If once you've tried it out a couple of times, you're not happy with the layout or you want to add an additional metric, then again, it's the same process. Just go into that activity, edit the data fields, remove ones you don't want, add ones that you want, remove screens, add screens, change the layout. It's as easy as that. One thing I do get a lot of questions about is whether you'd be able to set up a custom activity for a triathlon. This I don't think is really going to be possible because you're not going to be able to split between your cycling and your running and your swimming within the same custom activity. Bear in mind that creating a custom activity is only going to allow you to use any of the fields that are available in existing activities. So for instance, where I've suggested that maybe you would add a squash activity, you're not going to get stuff like racket speed or arm power, things like that that may be available on other trackers because it's not already available in an activity on the watch. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you would like more of this type of content, then hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.